نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله وأما بعد. Brother Islam.
Sorry, brother. I'm sorry to be nuisance. I have to do this. Another car is YM61, right in the corner at what's it called, brother? That turn in there. Please, can you move it, please? Please move the car now. Thank you.
C-Class Mercedes. No, mine.
Better to move it now than when everyone settles down and it's quiet and then everybody knows who's the one to get up. You know?
Come on, no shame, come on.
MashaAllah. Okay, let's settle down. Those of you who've got the 40 hadith, open it to hadith number 11. And in there we find Imam An-Nawawi rahmatullah alayhi relating the following. عن أبي محمد الحسن بن علي بن أبي طالب سبط رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وريحانته رضي الله عنهما قال حفظت من رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم دع ما يريبك إلى ما لا يريبك. رواه الترمذي والنسائي وقال الترمذي حديث حسن صحيح. On the authority of Abu Muhammad, father of Muhammad, Al-Hasan, the son of Ali ibn Abi Talib, who is the grandson of the Prophet, of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and Rayhanatihi, literally it means his fragrant flower, someone who he loved very much, and his beloved, who said, I memorized from the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, may peace and blessings be upon him, these words: leave that which makes you doubt for that which does not make you doubt. It was related by At-Tirmidhi and An-Nasa'i, and Tirmidhi says that it was a good and sound hadith, or it is a good and sound hadith. Very small, sharp, straightforward. And Abi Muhammad. So let's, because we've not come across Al-Hasan before in the biographies, let's see what we can get. Abu Muhammad Al-Hasan, who is the son of Ali ibn Abi Talib and Fatima radiallahu anhuma. So we are talking about the grandson, which actually says Sibti Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So he's a Sibt, he's a grandson of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And Sibt is different than Hafid. Hafid is also grandson, Hafid, but Hafid is grandson from the father side. And Sibt is grandson from the mother side. Okay, in this case, he is the son of the Prophet ﷺ's daughter, the Lady Fatima radiallahu anha. The Lady Fatima and Ali radiallahu anhuma. And he is the older brother by 1 year of Al-Hussein, Al-Hassan and Al-Hussein. Okay, these are the two leaders of the youths in paradise. Sayyid al-Shabab Ahl al-Jannah, the leaders of the youths amongst the people of paradise. So he is Al-Hasan, he is the Imam, the Shaheed, the Sayyid, the Master, the Sharif, because he is from the prophetic household. Abu Muhammad Al-Hasan ibn Ali ibn Abi Talib, Sayyid al-Shabab Ahl al-Jannah, the leader of the youths in the people of paradise. He is Qurayshi, he is from the noble tribe of Quraysh, and he's Banu Hashimi, as obviously his grandfather was. He was born in the year 3 Hijrah, 3 years after the prophetic migration to Medina. He was born, and a year after, in 4 Hijrah, his younger brother Al-Hussein was born. And it is said in the biographies that he most resembled his grandfather. In outward appearance, he most resembled his grandfather. In that sense, looking at Al-Hasan was like looking at the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. After Ali radiallahu anhu was killed he inherited the mantle of Khilafah, the Khilafah from him. Ali radiallahu anhu was tragically killed, and he inherited the Khilafah, or the political authority, from him. And that political authority didn't last long by his own choice. Because what had happened, and it's a long story which neither is there any great benefit in knowing, and neither is it something that I'm going to explore in much detail. But there was a serious misunderstanding between Muawiyah radiallahu anhu and Ali in the lifetime of Ali radiallahu anhu. It led to a civil war. It led to a civil war, not by their choice, but it happened. And there were a few issues that Muawiyah and others felt remained unresolved, even though the hadiths tell us that this was going to happen, and Ali radiallahu anhu was in the right. That is, he gets 2 rewards, and those who had the other different political view get 1 reward. Notice how they are rewarded, not sinful. Okay? So we're already talking about people who are righteous, even if they erred. Okay? And what happens is when Al-Hasan gets the Khilafah, the Caliphate, Muawiyah radiallahu anhu contests it. It doesn't contest that, but there are issues surrounding it that he contests. And so within 6 months, Al-Hasan gives up his Caliphate for Muawiyah to assume the Khilafah. He gives it up in order to avoid a possible second civil war. He looks at the whole ummah and he says, I have the right to Khilafahship, but if it's going to entail a possible civil war where Muslims are going to fight Muslims again, then for the sake of a greater good, I will leave another good for the sake of a greater good. Or if you want to look at it in the other light, I will do a lesser evil, but it wasn't an evil, for the sake of warding off a greater evil, which is Muslim disunity and civil war. I think there's a lessons that many Muslims could learn from here. Not just Muslim rulers, today's Muslim rulers, but many individual Muslims. And my mind goes immediately not too much to Syria as it does Pakistan, and kind of civil war there. But anyway, it applies to many places. And the Prophet ﷺ predicted this. Why? He said in the hadith, which is recorded in Bukhari, Inna ibn hadha, this son of mine, meaning this grandson of mine, Sayyidun, is a master, وَسَيُصْلِحُ اللَّهُ بِهِ بَيْنَ طَائِفَتَيْنِ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ, and he will harmonize and reconcile between 2 parties of the believers. Okay? بَيْنَ طَائِفَتَيْنِ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ, 2 parties of the believers, and that was the party of Muawiyah and those who were supporting Al-Hasan. He relinquished his Khilafahship for this. So he was a man of intense piety. He was a man who inherited the prophetic concern of fitr, the worry for the ummah and for the believers, that he didn't wish to see blood spilt between them. And whatever political deed he could do to avoid that, he was ready to do, and which he did. Radiyallahu anhu, may Allah be pleased with him. And he was rayhanatihi, he was the fragrant flower of the Prophet ﷺ. He was akilan, he was very intelligent, haliman, very mild, fasihan. His Arabic was just perfect, pitch perfect. And he was he made Hajj 20 times on foot. Okay, possibly from Iraq, but 20 times on foot. That tends to be a virtue. In the biographies, you'll quite often hear this man made Hajj 30 times, 50 times, 10 times, and quite often it says on foot. Okay, it's kind of a virtue. It shows the kind of dedication. And the Prophet ﷺ said about him and his brother Al-Hasan and Al-Hussein, Allahumma inni أحبهما فأحبهما. Oh Allah, I love them too dearly. Love them also. Okay? And part of Iman, according to the Aqeedah of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, is to love the prophetic household. And that what is preferred is that we learn to love the children of the Prophet ﷺ more than we love our own children. That we learn to love the children of the Prophet ﷺ more than we love our own parents. Okay, that's the preferred view. That's the preferred state of heart. He died in the year 50 Hijrah, and he was about 47 years old. So that's the narrator of this hadith, and he relates this simple hadith, similar to hadith number 5, Da' ma yuribuka ila ma la yuribuk. Leave that which makes you doubt for that which does not make you doubt. And in hadith number 5, the halal is clear and the haram is clear, and in between are doubtful matters which not many people know about. So he who leaves the doubtful matters protects his religion and his religious integrity. We covered that, and we covered the levels of doubt and the types of doubt. Some doubts you can just ignore and not act upon. Some doubts you have to act upon, and some doubts it's better to act upon, act upon leaving the doubtful. So this hadith here is saying the same thing. Leave that which makes you doubt for that which doesn't make you doubt. In Islam, you have something called taqwa, piety, God-fearingness, and something called wara. And wara is a higher level of taqwa. We can translate it as scrupulousness. When the Prophet ﷺ used the word wara in various hadith and statements, he means scrupulousness. And to be scrupulous means to be even extra cautious. One can be cautious, but to be extra cautious within bounds and within Sharia bounds, that extra cautiousness is what is called wara. This hadith, leave that which makes you doubt for that which doesn't make you doubt, is actually emphasizing be a person of wara, be a person of scrupulousness. So taqwa requires, piety, taqwa requires that we leave that which is clearly haram, clearly unlawful. Something which is clearly haram in terms of food, in terms of wealth and money, in terms of relationships, we leave it. Okay, as a must. But there are some things which they are doubtful and there is reason enough to make them questionable. Then, not taqwa, but wara, this extra cautiousness, urges us to leave the doubtful for that which isn't doubtful. Because leaving the doubtful, you will always be on safe grounds. But falling into the doubtful, or maybe it is halal, maybe it is haram, maybe it is the right thing, maybe it's not the right thing. And so at that time, one consults their heart, which is generally oriented to piety. There is a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said, seek fatwa from your heart. Seek a religious verdict from your heart. That kind of doesn't apply to people whose heart has no condition or is not regulated by the teachings of Islam. It's regulated by their whims and desires, their impulses, their passions. Then when the Prophet ﷺ is saying that in a particular situation, consult your heart, that's pretty useless. Your heart is just acting upon its ego, its impulses, its whims and desires, its greeds. That's not what the Prophet ﷺ is encouraging. Rather, whenever the Prophet ﷺ says these words, consult your heart, or there are words of the Sahaba or the early Imams that suggest the same thing, it's talking about a person who generally is regulating his life or her life according to revelation, the book and the Sunnah. And then there may be a grey area in his life or an issue. Then he should, after he's taken advice, he should consult his heart. Why? Because such a heart is a God-fearing heart. And it's illuminated with the light of faith, the Anwar al-Iman. It's illumined with the light of taqwa, of piety and vigilance, and the being aware of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then that type of heart is worthy of consulting for one's own self, because it can be a good guide. Okay, it's not like how, even if Shakespeare didn't mean it, without going back into the context, I can't remember how he meant it. But when Shakespeare puts these words into one of his characters' mouths, this this above all else, to thine own self be true, which modern human beings, modern English-speaking people, will use that to mean follow your own desires and your own wants and your own likes. I don't think Shakespeare was actually saying that in that context, but it's now become an excuse to just do what you want. That's not what the Prophet was saying when he said, consult your own heart. Or do what you want. He's saying, consult your own heart when your heart has some kind of decent semblance of being attracted to divine guidance and the divine way. Okay. So leave that which makes you doubt for that which doesn't make you doubt. Most scholars will say, like Imam al-Manawi in his commentary on the Jami' al-Saghir of Suyuti, his commentary called Al-Fayd al-Qadir, Bishar al-Jami' al-Saghir. It's a beautiful commentary. He says about this hadith, he says that most scholars say it is recommended to leave that which makes you doubt for that which doesn't make you doubt. As a religious ruling, it's recommended. However, as some other people have said, whether it's recommended or not, it is good that we stick by this principle as much and as practically as we can, because it's always going to keep us on safe grounds. An example, in Sahih Muslim, Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he was sitting with this person who was a recent convert, and he was around his house, or they were having a meal together, but the convert had provided the meal. And he's Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, who's known for his frugality, he doesn't eat much and he fasts a lot and so on. He's eating, and then somehow in conversation it turns out the convert tells him that I've come into Islam recently, and I brought this food that you're eating with the money that I had gained in my pre-Islamic days, which is again okay, except that in his pre-Islamic days he made idols. He's actually, like a carpenter making loads of idols, or maybe not even a carpenter. Umar radiallahu anhu says, if you remember, one day before I was a Muslim, he says, our habit was that if ever we the Quraysh would travel, we would take our local god along with us on our little journey. And I'm on my journey, he says, and shock horror, I've forgotten my god, and he goes, I looked around and all I had was like a date, which was some of my eating provisions. So I kind of like made that into my kind of outward form of God, my deity, my idol, and then prayed to it. But along the way, I got hungry, and there wasn't anything to eat. Is what they were saying, and so he chomped the god, right? Just to show that in those days we were doing very silly things. So my point being that the idol might not necessarily have been out of wood; it could have been out of something like clay or whatever. Anyway, the point being is he makes his idol, and then he gets money for it, and then he becomes a Muslim, and he's using some of that money. And this is actually the money that he's bought the food with. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu put his finger in his mouth and he vomited out the food. This is because As-Siddiq radiallahu anhu is at a particular level. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he's at a particular level. And the scholars say, this is just as a rule of thumb, they say, Hasanatul Abrar, Sayyiatul Muqarribin. The deeds of the righteous, the good deeds of the righteous, are the bad deeds of those who are very close to God, the Muqarrabun, those who are very close to Allah. Okay? Meaning that there are some things for you and me, it's totally halal and it's totally fine to do. It's totally okay. Not so much halal, let's not leave that. It's totally, it's acceptable. But for those who are close to Allah, that same deed might be unacceptable. For example, that you and I pray tahajjud once a week, once a month, even once a year, even once in a lifetime. Khalas, is acceptable. For someone who is close to Allah to do that, it's not acceptable. Because there is a different type of adab, a different type of behavior between the lover and the beloved. Okay? And when there is a relationship established, the courtesies of love must prevail. Okay? The courtesies of love, the adab al-mahabba, must prevail. So here, from the adab al-mahabba, from the courtesies of love, is Abu Bakr puts his finger in his mouth, because he doesn't want anything impure entering. Even if he did have that, it would have been fine because he's not responsible for that kind of thing. Anyway, that's an example of leaving that which makes you doubt for that which doesn't make you doubt. But remember, and I emphasize, let's be not so much practical, but let's be consistent, starting with the basics. Let's leave that which is haram first. And generally in my life, I am working on trying to avoid all haram. In my life, my first obligation is to avoid all haram. Haram in terms of what I say with my tongue, which is one of the main ways we do haram. Another of the ways, because out of the kind of 70 odd major sins, some of them we never it doesn't even enter into modern life, some of them. But some of them do, and they will continue to. The sins of the tongue, the haram sins, such as backbiting, swearing. There are some swear words which is immensely hated to use, but not completely haram, and there are some swear words which are haram. So I will just accept that from you and say yes. As a rule of thumb, just consider it haram. What else? Lying. Okay, things like avoid. Sins of the eyes, lowering our gaze in terms of seeing those women that we're not meant to be seeing, especially when lust is involved. The problem is not having lust. Allah's put hormones in us. Okay, and those hormones have a particular physiological effect on us. Okay, the thing is, nurturing that lust when marriage is not there. Nurturing that lust when marriage isn't there. So we are told to lower our gaze. Okay? And also try to avoid being in close proximity for too long. Why? Because modern biology and research has proven conclusively, and this is not just recently, this is going back about 20, 30 years, but over the last 10 years it's got even better, is that even the subtle odours that men and women give off, they are triggers for people liking each other and disliking each other. And they are not things that you and I can normally detect consciously, like a smell of an orange or a smell of an aftershave or something like that. They're subtler than that, but they do happen. Okay. So there are so many things which we see the wisdoms in the ancient Sunnah becoming manifest by much of modern science, but we are not those who have tried to yank on modern science to justify every Sunnah. We're quite happy to know that whether modern science approves or not, this is divinely revealed. Okay, but it's just nice to know. I quite often say modern science generally is something that can strengthen our iman. This was said by Brother Qaisar as well some months ago. And one shouldn't really shy away from it. The only thing is it's kind of twisting some of modern science and to hammer it in so that it seems to fit Islam. We don't really need to do that, inshallah. Point being is, haram. Let's work on the haram. Why? Because sometimes what happens is people go a bit crazy with this. Leave that which makes you doubt for that which doesn't make you doubt. There's all these harams in my life, but I'm talking about, well, should I go and buy my cat food from Sainsbury's or Tesco's because we don't know what's in it? Yeah, don't worry about your cat. Really, just let her or him eat whatever, inshallah. I mean, they're eating rats and mice and whatever, God knows. You know, you don't have to go and take it to HMC's shop or, whatever. Concentrate on yourself. And the other big source of haramness is income. Income. And though it's true, we cannot avoid all interest, all haram things, but we can avoid a lot of it, and we are only responsible for that which is in our control. This is why, as a Sharia ruling, what is the ruling of, for example, someone like a non-Muslim who has traded in interest, and then he's got £150 from that interest. Then he comes to the Muslim market, and then you come and say, you buy this book from him, and you give him it's £13.50, you give him a £20 note, and he gives you, out of that interest money, he gives you £6.50 in change. You know that he's gone over there, and traded, and now he's come to our market, so he's got some money which is interest money. So does that mean that transaction is haram? No. No. What counts is me buying the book from that person is that transaction in and of itself halal? Forget about the background. Is that halal? If it is, fine. I give him a 20 quid, he gives me 650 back. And that 650 he took out of his till, it's halal. And that's exactly what the Prophet did with the Jews of Medina. He knows that in Medina, they're not transacting with riba, usury, because usury is forbidden. But these are Jews who have a fairly complex network, economic network, around the Arabian Peninsula and up north in the Syrian region, in the Levant. And they do trade with their cousins and brother Jews around there, and with with the mushriks, the idolaters. And then they are coming back to Medina after their caravan trip to wherever, and they're still trading with the Muslims. The Prophet doesn't say, oh, but they traded there and all that money is tainted. No, what counts is the transaction. So, what counts is the money given to me and how I earned it. Not what happened in the cycle. Otherwise, every penny in our pocket has gone through an interest-based cycle. Okay, and has done that probably since the 17th century. So this excuse that, oh, but you can't avoid it. The Prophet, you can't avoid the interest. That's such a defeatist statement from a Muslim. And I cringe when it's made by a mature Muslim man. And if it's made by a 17-year-old or a 20-year-old, Bismillah, what can you say? He's growing up. Okay, when you get a 30-year-old or 50-year-old or saying these things, subhanallah. It's a bit like saying, well, actually, prostitution is quite rife. Teenage pregnancy is quite rife. Drinking, I mean, we're in the binge drinking kingdom of the world, right? That's rife. So why not just, well, you can't stop anything. Why not just give in? In fact, carry on. Well, the Prophet said on one of the signs of the Day of Judgment is that mothers will give birth to their mistresses, meaning they'll give birth to bossy daughters who won't respect their rights or their honour. So why bother teaching our children to respect parents? Since in the end, on the day of, one of the signs of the Day of Judgment is everything's going to be topsy-turvy and upside down and back to front. Hey, why don't we get with the program and just start teaching the wrong things because they're going to be one day the norm? No. What we have to do is just do what is right regardless of what's happening in the world. We don't say that, and this is not the case, but if it were the case, that kufr is increasing, disbelief is increasing, more people are leaving Islam and becoming... So, we might as well give up our Islam. Absolutely not. Just like that makes sense to us. That, no, we just stay firm. Likewise, we do our best to make sure halal income. And we hope Allah will excuse us the rest. And we have a desire to bring about a time when there is economic justice in accordance with the Sharia and the sacred law. Okay? And that's how the attitude we should be. Anything else is a devil's deception. Not only is it fickle, it's almost childlike, but it's something that a mature Muslim should never entertain or contemplate. So leave that which makes you doubt, starting with the haram. And then as we're kind of settling in the haram, leaving the things haram, and it's becoming our normal way of life, we're becoming more God conscious. We're obviously doing the prayer and the fasting and things like that as well. I mean, that goes without saying. Then we're also trying to leave that which is makruh, dislike.